$28. All right, now please turn your handy dandy notebook. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to prove two triangles are congruent by side, side, side. Whew, may not have enough room to write our fourth thing. It's okay, we can write tiny. Okay, we can. Okay, guys, yes, it is entirely my fault. It is so my fault because we all folded it the same way. Okay, baby, unstaple it, put new staples in it. Be self-sufficient. Guys, we can write right below it. It's going to be okay. Take a deep breath. We're not going to die. Stop saying my name. Stop.
Mother Goose.
When I slap you on the head and pretend like we're playing Duck, Duck, Goose, just know you deserved it, baby. All right, now, in proofs, what is always the first thing that we do? We write the given. Take a point. Now, they gave us two things, so we're going to write those on different lines. Is everybody ready? Raven, I need you to be quiet and just write. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write down our first given. So we're going to write that RP is congruent to PS. And the reason is given. I need you to be able to answer that the reasoning is given. Tyler, if you need to turn your desk, you can. At the end. At the end.
Oh, I thought you said something.
Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to put tickies. And we're going to, since it told us that RP was congruent to PS, and that should actually be SP. I don't like how they did that. We're going to put our tickies. Now, remember, our goal in this is to prove that the two triangles are congruent. And we have 5 different ways we can do that, right? It gave us two sides congruent. So our next given is RQ is congruent. We're going to write SQ and write it in the correct way. And what reason do we know those two are congruent? Given. Because it told us. So are we going to put 1 ticky on those or 2? 2. Because it's our next line. Just write the third right underneath it. You're going to be fine. I need you to be self-sufficient and find the stapler without me. I don't know, but I need you. It's over there.
Take it off.
It's over there. All of it's over there on my desk. All right, now, do they have any angles that are congruent that we know of?
Yes. Oh no. I'm confused.
Oh my God.
Do we have any rainbows on these triangles? No, then we don't have any angles congruent. But do they share a side?
Yes.
So does that mean that side is congruent to itself? So we would say PQ is congruent to PQ. And what property is that? Reflexive. When it's the same thing on both sides, it's the reflexive property. Now, I know that we all don't have number 4, so what we're going to do is we're going to write it right beside it. Now, we have a side, and then we know that this side is congruent. On the other triangle, we have a side, a side, a side. So how are those two triangles congruent? By side, side, side. So all you have to do is write triangle RPQ is congruent to triangle SPQ by side, side, side. That's it. Was that proof really that difficult? What part of it was confusing?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, let's walk through it again. And I'll try to dumb it down to 5-year-old. Okay? No judgment, all God's children, let's just do it. What we did was we started with our given. And we wrote down the first thing they gave us. And we said that RP was congruent to PS, and the reason was they gave it to us. Right? So then we went over here and we put a ticky on RP and we put a ticky on PS. Does everybody agree so far?
Yeah.
Because it says they're congruent. Then we wrote down our second given. And we said that RQ is congruent to SQ because we wanted to write it in the correct way. And what reason did we know they were congruent? It gave it to us. So we wrote given. Is everybody with me on the first two steps? Then we know that they share a side. And when they share a side, does that mean that side is congruent to itself?
Yes.
Yes, because it's best friends. It's together. They share it. Does everybody understand?
Yes.
So we wrote that PQ was congruent to PQ, and that's the reflexive property. So then we have a side, a side, a side. So we said the triangles were congruent by side, side, side. Does that make more sense now? Okay. Are we ready to do the next one?
Yes.
Could we maybe step it up to 7-year-old level?
Yes.
Okay. Let's look at number 2. Now, the first thing it says is that B is the midpoint of AC. What does midpoint mean?
The middle.
What does that mean it does to that segment? It cuts in half. Take a point. So if B is in the middle of AC, what does that mean about these two sides? Oh my gosh, guys. Take a point and then put a ticky there. Now, what do we always start off with? With the given. So I want us to write our first given down. Okay? I want us to say that B is the midpoint of AC. Now, what reason do we know that's true? Given. Now, other than our other given, what do we now know? AB, we went from outside to in, is congruent to CB. Good, take a point. Now, why are those two congruent?
Because they're
Because it's the midpoint, so that's definition of midpoint. Take a point, children. She did say it. Alright, now is everybody with me on how we did the first two steps? Do you want to pause and look back at those, or can we go to step 3? Are we sure? Okay. What is our other given?
AD and CD.
Alright. AD is congruent to CD. And what reason is that? Given. Now, do we need to put 2 tickies on those sides? Let's put 2 tickies.
Quick reminder announcement. First off is remember that Balfour will be here tomorrow.
Do those 2 triangles share a side? What's that side?
Any of the athletes that would like to order their Letterman jackets, please bring your deposit
DB is congruent to.
to the lobby first thing in the morning. Also, don't forget.
And what property is that?
And also, please start thinking about getting lost and found. That you may
Now,
look
we have a
for
side,
and may
a
not
side, and a side. Are those 2 triangles congruent? Why?
It's ADC.
Side, side, side. So we would say that triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD by side, side, side.
Thank you.
Do we need to walk through that one more time, or are we okay? Does anyone want to walk through it again just to be safe?
No.
Okay. Alright, we graduated to 7-year-olds. Now let's do side angle side and see if we can make it to being 8. No. I wasn't here yesterday. You got like kind of a day off. Every time.
No.
I can't trust y'all. I can't trust y'all to behave when I'm not here. You cussed the last time. You.
God.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let's look at number 3. Alright, so I want you to start by not being on your phone, or I'm going to keep it forever, and then I'm going to call your mom on it and tell her that she needs to come up here and meet me and get your phone. Okay?
That is my mom.
I know. I'm sorry about your life. Let's read our given. Now, it says that XZ bisects angle WXY. What does it mean when it bisects an angle? It cuts it in half. Take a point. So that means that the two angles it creates are what? Congruent. Alright, now, what I want us to do is I want us to start by writing our proven at the bottom. Or our prove. You're proven. WXZ is congruent to triangle YZX. That's what we're trying to get to, is those two triangles are congruent. Because that's what you always end with. This is a great question. You always end with that. Now, we're going to start with our given. We're going to start with our first given. And our first given says that XZ bisects angle WXY. Now, what reason do we know that's true? The given. Now, it's bisecting this top angle up here, correct? So that means that we need to put a rainbow right here and another rainbow over here, because those two angles are now congruent. So since we know those two angles are congruent, let's list those two angles. In case you don't remember how to do that, somebody name that left angle for me. WXZ. Good. Take a point. Angle WXZ is congruent to what angle? YXZ. Great job. No. And what reason is that? Nope, it doesn't give us that. Definition of, what did it bisect? An angle bisector. Good, take a point. When we practice these some more tomorrow, you're going to have a word bank to be able to pick from. And on your test, you're going to be able to have a word bank to pick from. Thank God. Okay, now, do we have another given?
Yes.
Alright, let's list that other given. WX is congruent to XY. And why do we know that's true, y'all? Given. Do we need to put tickies on there? Alright, so WX is congruent to XY. Now, do we know that anything else is congruent on this picture? Do they share a side?
Yes.
They do. And if they share a side, is that side congruent to itself? Yes, it is, guys. So how could we write this? XZ is congruent to XZ. And what reason is that? Reflexive. Alright, now let's figure out how these two triangles are congruent. We have a side, an angle, a side. We have a side, an angle, and a side. So how are they congruent? Side, angle, side. Now, before you leave me, I want you to try, number 4 is going to be your homework. I will tell you what needs to go where. I don't know why you're up when you should be writing this down. I haven't even finished writing.
Put that down. Put it down.
Now finish this one for homework. Okay? We might be 9-year-olds. I'm not sure.